So I just want to say welcome everyone to the Abundant Life Center service the 25th of May, 2025. And I will light the God candle. We light this as a symbol of the one power and presence in the universe, called by many names, and the name you choose to use is welcome. Out of sight, but that's okay. It's here, you know. And we'll start by reading together our values. Our values. We show up and act with gentle honesty and authenticity, vulnerability, caring, and trust, open and welcoming hearts, attentive listening to and respect for one another, an intent to connect with the divine, a dedication to community, a commitment to grow through spiritual practice and service. And our opening song is Let Go of the Shore. It's a Karen Drucker song. That was a very peaceful message. That's nice. Thank you, whoever chose that today. So today we have the pleasure of Reverend DyAnne Greebtree-Wood speaking and sharing her thoughts on spiritual living, I would say, with us based on the title. Her title today is Love versus Fear, the Reframing of Good and Evil, which sounds pretty timely for our daily life with the news and what we hear a lot of. And for anyone that isn't aware, DyAnne was our minister in the past at the Abundant Life Center. So it's always great to welcome you back. Thank you. And DyAnne's going to do a meditation and then share her message, after which we'll have a chance to interact with questions or comments. Okay, take it away, DyAnne.
Thank you. So I invite everybody just to get really comfortable in your chair. And if you feel so, just close your eyes and just take a few deep breaths, just really big, cleansing breaths, breathing in love and out anything that looks unlike love and anything that has happened before or what you were thinking about, just let go of those things for right now and breathe into this here and now, this present moment. And I invite you to just tune in to your body and think about your muscles. And I always like to start with the toes and the feet and just imagine them loosening up. And sometimes people tighten them and then they loosen them, and just feel that energy and that energy of relaxation and warmth. I imagine warmth just radiating to my muscles and relaxing them, and feel that relaxation just move up your ankles, and just feel that just loosening up and warmth. And I always like to say, too, for us to send lots of love to our body, even though I know that we were talking about aging before. We're aging, but we're still here, and this body is still working to the best of its ability. And just thank it for that. And continue to send that love, that warmth, that relaxation up your legs. And just feel them relax. And just feel that energy of your feet and your legs being on Mother Earth, and just feel that support that Mother Earth has for us. And I invite you now to feel that the place that you're sitting in your chair, just feel the support you have there in that seat, and just feel that supporting, loving calming, relaxing energies in your thighs and your buttocks and your back, lower back and your hips. Just feel the warmth and the relaxation of that area of your body, and just think of all the, I don't know, the gratefulness for the chair, the gratefulness for what our body does for us. And then imagine that energy, that relaxation coming up your torso, relaxing your torso, your stomach muscles, your chest. And just thank that part of your body for doing all the work that it does, our digestion, our breathing, all those things. And send it lots of love. Breathe into some love, breathing into our body. That love. And then imagine your shoulders. Sometimes I have to roll them, get the tension out. Carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. Just imagine that weight just falling away from our shoulders. And breathe in some gratitude and love to your shoulders for the weight it carries, even when maybe we need to let go of some of it. But it still does its job. It's wonderful. Our body is an amazing, amazing thing. It's an amazing gift. And then imagine that relaxation going down your arms, down to your elbows. And just breathe in some love and support and joy and gratitude into that part of our body. And our wrist, and our fingers, and our hands. Oh, what amazing things that our hands and wrists and arms can do. And that gratitude. Maybe flex your fingers a little and just let it relax. And then imagine that relaxing energy going up to your neck. And that neck does a big job holding up that head of ours. And just thank that neck for what it does, and just feel the tension move away, roll down your back. And imagine your back being relaxed, and there's lots of gratefulness to be given there as well. Just imagine that. All the gratitude for our body. And then, of course, our amazing head and our face. Just imagine those muscles in your cheeks relaxing, and around your eyes and your forehead, your ears, all of that area of our body. Then imagine the top of our head, that chakra, that top, most sacred chakra on the top of our head. And just imagine that part relaxing. And at the same time, imagine just that energy of God, that energy of the universe, that energy of the world, the love of the world, the joy of the world, just filling us up through that top chakra. Just imagine that love of the universe, that love of God, that love of Great Spirit, that love of that which we consider divine. Just imagine that love just radiating through us and around us. Also thanking us for all of the wonder that we are and bring to the world. Oh, and thank you for little dogs. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Whew. But we can still relax in that hustle and bustle of the world. So, as we sit here in this relaxed state, I welcome you to just imagine yourself being held, being held in love and in security, safety, and comfort. And as we imagine that love, imagine it being the love of spirit, the love of God, that safety and that security just surrounding us and loving us. And I'll invite us to sit in that hopeful silence as my neighbor dog gives up and goes away. Just allow yourself to feel that safety and that security and that love of God, that love of spirit, that love of the universe holding us. Oh, if you're not already back from meditation, I invite you back now. And there we are. Sorry about that. My neighbor needed something, and I think he thought there was something wrong with me because I wasn't answering the door. So I think I'm going to start my talk. And I'm so grateful to be here and to do this. When I was asked to speak, it was so funny because I was just having a conversation with one of my friends about this topic about good and evil, and like Linda had said before, it was a lot about what's going on in the world and why do people do this, and why aren't they, what's wrong with them, why can, a lot of it was about thinking. And so when I saw there were some questions that were asked, like, would you like to do a talk on this? And the question that I saw that I really liked: does evil exist objectively, or is it a product of false thinking? So even though my talk is called the reframing of good and evil, I will go back to that question too, because I think that is very apropos for today and for us trying to understand some of the stuff that's going on around us that I think I'm probably speaking for the majority of us, wondering why it's going on when our belief system, especially in new thought, and just, I know a lot of you, and I know a lot of what your belief systems are, and I know sometimes it's confusing. It's certainly confusing for me. But when I was in Marylhurst, this good and evil thing was really big for me. I had when I first started in Marylhurst, I was in a interdisciplinary program, and that was in my bachelor's degree. And I started out in I started out in psychology, religion, and history as my interdisciplinary, thinking I might be a teacher or a counselor or a minister. I wasn't sure, but I knew I was interested in all those things, and I loved history because I felt like we could learn from that. But what happened one day is, in the catalog, I saw this class called metaphysics. Well, I had heard that word so many times in my first New Thought church that I thought, oh, I know everything about this. I could easy A this class, And it was funny because just saw the name and briefly looked at it, and I just signed up for it. Well, I didn't realize it was a philosophy class, and I had never taken philosophy in high school or anything, because the kind of person I was back then, anything that had to do with logic to me was just, boring, because I didn't quite understand it really as a high schooler. Who does, right? As we're so full of hormones and angst that, logic to me, and so I never was attracted to philosophy. But what was fascinating about this class, I walked in there and I started to listen to the teacher and my students, and I went, oh my gosh, all my life I've been a philosopher and I didn't even know it. It was like I had arrived, because in the family of my origin, nobody it was always what you see is what you get kind of thing. There was never any depth. There was never any hidden meaning to anything. Everything was just really black and white and cut and dry. And so they were always like, oh, DyAnne, there she goes again, talking about life and death and talking about all that stuff. And I was shut down a lot and felt like, the ugly duckling, felt like I didn't belong. And then I walked into that philosophy class and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is who I am. I'm a philosopher. So I changed my interdisciplinary from history to philosophy, but still took some history classes because I certainly loved that. But I learned so much from this particular teacher. That was the interesting thing. We were in metaphysics, and what I learned in New Thought was metaphysics was that which is beyond the physical, that which is you can't necessarily taste, touch, or feel, but it's something beyond that. And what this class was about was the meaning of life. What's the meaning of life? And what's the meaning of life according to many philosophies? And it was so fascinating because there were so many, and I have to say, a lot of obscure ideas, a lot of interesting, well, you think this is what it is. And some of them were so bizarre, I thought, kind of that question, how could somebody think like that, And we'll touch on that a little bit too, because the thinking part is really interesting, I think, to think that the irrational can think rationally is sometimes something that I think we expect of people. Anyway, so this teacher, she's lecturing, and we do a lot of the thing that was so great about Merylhurst is we got to do a lot of talking, and kind of like we do at the end of the service, we got to do a lot of interaction, and I learned sometimes more from the other students even than I did often from the class, but certainly loving the topic. It was a great thing. But she used the term good and evil all the time. And I could tell that there was something really personal in it with her, but that idea of evil just pushed my buttons even back then, just so big, just pushed my buttons all the time. And so finally at the end of the class, she asked, does anybody have any questions or comments? And I raised my hand and I said, yeah. I said, you use that term good and evil all the time, and that really bothers me. And so we talked a little bit, and she said, okay, well, we could talk more about that. But she says, but please don't drop this class. I think you will be really happy if you stay here. And so I had learned from a lot of my life lessons in wonderful places that if I feel strongly about something, there's something there for me to learn. And so I said, I'll have to stay in this class because I knew there was something there for me to learn. So I ended up talking to that woman later in this weird, coincidental, if you believe in that kind of thing, serendipitous way. I ran into this teacher and we had a talk about it. And it turned out that she thought it was semantics, but I still wasn't convinced. So what ended up happening in that bachelor's degree, she ended up becoming my advisor we had to do this capstone paper that was supposed to convince the world about why we are taking these three disciplines together and what that means for our lives and all of that. And so I wrote a paper, Love versus Fear, the Reframing of Evil, and I dedicated it to my teacher. And because I still fought with myself in that concept of evil being something outside of ourselves, being something that was an entity. Like, remember Flip Wilson used to say, devil made me do it. That kind of, outside entity that makes us do something, that holds us hostage, basically. And that's what I thought about. If we really believed in an evil, then we wouldn't have to take very much responsibility for our actions. There are so many things we could get away with. And, and in New Thought, I'm taught that all of us are made in the image and likeness of God, that we all have that energy of universe, of God, great spirit, whatever you call it, within us, that I love just to call it divinity sometimes. We have that spark of divinity within us, and if we're made in that image and likeness, then there is no evil. It's just love. That God is love. God is all there is. That God is love. And so what is evil? What is this thing called evil? And I did a lot of studying, a lot of talking, a lot of just going within and really trying to get in touch with my experience with it and talking to others about their experience with it. And what I came to realize is that the closest thing to evil is fear. Now, not saying fear is bad, though. That's the thing. In New Thought, we're taught not to judge. So we all know the horse story about the guy, the horse comes and, was it good or bad? No, let's see, kind of thing. And I think fear is the same way, because what's happened now, psychologists and that counseling modality tells us that a human's biggest fear is the fear of abandonment. Well, that was our survival. And also, there are other fears, of course, but what I think I would consider evil is an unexamined fear. Because I think what happens is we go into our lives run by fear and we don't even realize it. And a lot of those fears are those survival fears for us. The fear, like fear of abandonment. We were given that fear so that as infants we could survive. We needed our people. And I think a lot of us are run by that fear of losing our people. When I talk to people about, maybe we could change, and I think people are so afraid of change because if they change, then their people won't accept them anymore. But the bottom line fear of that is fear of abandonment. So, Course in Miracle tells us there's only two emotions, love and fear. And in my own experience in this world, I believe that. There was a teacher, Harry Morgan Moses, used to go to the church with me, and he used to do this forgiveness workshop, and it used to drive me insane because it worked, but oh my gosh. So when we were afraid of something, and we would tell him the whole story, the whole sordid story, he'd go, what's that really about? And then I'd say, oh, it's about, and then he'd say, what's that really about? And I'd be like, oh, it's about what I just said and maybe blah, blah, blah. And then pretty soon he kept saying that until you just wanted to strangle him. But when you finally got to that place, you realized, I'm afraid. There's something at the bottom of it I'm afraid of. And usually it's abandonment. Usually it's fear of losing love, losing abandonment, losing our tribe, losing our connection with one another. So fear is not a bad thing. But when we go into the world, like I was thinking about, this is what I was talking to my friend about, was he said, well, there are these evil people that sit around and they plot these evil deeds. And I went, I don't really think they're thinking. I think what they're feeling is anger or resentment or revenge. What's that really about? What's that really about? What's that really about? What's that really about? It's about fear. So I'm not really sure if evil is a product of false thinking. What I believe evil is a product of unexamined fear. That when we walk into the world and we see all this craziness going on, all these people doing these things that, like, in our intellect make absolutely no sense. What are they thinking? I'm sorry, but they're not thinking. They're feeling. They're feeling fear. Their fear is unexamined. And I don't think that you can really think in a rational way when you are afraid. Because think about how when you feel really afraid, you're sort of like this. You're sort of guarding yourself. How is it that we can really open up and think in a clear, loving manner if we're like this? And Carl Jung says too that insanity or unwellness mentally is when our heart our feelings, maybe our examined fears, and our thinking don't match. And so there are people in the world, they're running rampant with fear, with unexamined fear. And so what they're really running from is feelings. They're not thinking. They're not, and if they are thinking, they're thinking thoughts of how can I get revenge from this person who wronged me. So it's really not thinking, I think, that is the cause of what we might call evil. Ernest Holmes in The Science of Mind says evil of itself is not a person, place, or thing. It's actually what we see as something destructive. It's a judgment that we make. Evil is a judgment that we make. Because even when people do things out of fear, unexamined fear, they go out there and they make crazy mistakes. I know I've done that before, but I, thank goodness, have learned a lot from those crazy mistakes. And to me, that's a good thing, you know? So fear has its place. But I also think too, that's the other thing I wanted to say. I'm glad I remembered that. Is that, it took me a long, long, long time to really look at a lot of my fears. I still have to look at them every day. Like I said, when I have a strong emotion about something, I know there's something in there. But I think what happens is when we examine those fears, for instance, when we examine those fears from fears of abandonment, if we take a look at those fears and realize that we're not babies anymore, and that I think a healthy adult hopefully can find a faith in something, whatever you would call great spirit, universal mind, God, whatever you would call it, could find that faith that would replace that fear. That's the other thing. That's once I've examined it, then I have to say, does this fear still serve me? And if it doesn't, then I just give it to great higher power or whatever I call it, and then they can manage that for me, and then I let them be the one in charge, and I let them take my life and show me what to do with it, that I don't need to hang on to that fear to survive anymore. There are a couple fears I like I don't my fear of walking down a dark alley by myself. I like that fear. I'll hang on to that one, but I've examined it, and so I really think that the question of does evil exist objectively? I don't believe so, but you know what I also believe in? I believe, like New Thought teaches, is that we can create things through our thinking. So we can create what we might consider an evil situation just by our thinking. But I don't believe that it is real objectively. I don't believe there is an entity out there that's evil. I don't believe there's a devil. I believe we all go to the same place when we die. We probably have different experiences, but I think we all go to the same place because I don't believe there's somebody sending us to hell. But what I do believe is that it's hard for us to really imagine people to have thinking when they're in fear and when they're in unexamined or just gripping fear. I think that's what's going on in our country today. Those people that act in a way that we think is evil, I think they're just terrified and they're acting from that place. So that's that's the way I see it, and I look forward to what everyone else has to say. And I think I'm going to let it go at that. And appreciate you all so very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Definitely food for thought. Who has a comment, question? Like to start our interaction?
Yeah, I think that often our fear is actually driven from a fear of change. We feel comfortable in a situation and we always look for comfort in some ways. that's a driver, but the opposition to that is change, and change, unless we embrace it, essentially will roll over us. And I think that's also an issue we need to consider.
Thank you. And Cheryl.
Well, my idea about evil is that it's what you name it. That two people can look at the same thing and one call it good and one call it evil, and it's just the same thing. So it's what you think and what you name it, and it just is. It's not, I don't think there is good and evil, really. I think it all just is, and you claim it and name it based on how you feel and think.
Thank you.
That was really good, Cheryl. I really liked that.
Thanks.
And Reverend DyAnne, I loved what you said about, strong emotions should be investigated. Sometimes I run away from strong emotions, so I like that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Amanda, see you.
Well, I think that if we say there is no evil, can we say there is good? I mean,
That's a good
is God
philosophical
good?
question,
Huh?
Ananda.
What?
That's a good philosophical question, Ananda.
Is God good, or is God it just is?
Kind of goes back to what Cheryl was saying, what we name it.
Yeah.
And that's what New Thought teaches us, our reality is what we make it.
In largely, although sometimes it seems that our good intentions, or let's say our kind intentions, are run over by others' unkind intentions. And that's what I'm struggling with these days, is how can people be so unkind? It's like it is, to some degree, in some parts of our culture, unkindness is valorized, is applauded. That's a new thing, I think, that's occurred. I mean, there's always been a part of culture, a part of society that uh, you know thought it was a good thing, but it's become much more widely accepted in the last decade, I think. People strut around with it.
Can I make a comment, Ananda?
Yeah.
I think it's exactly what I was talking about. It's fear. So these people, these bullies, they got a tribe and they're bullies. And look at me, I'm the king bully. And I got to act this way so I can belong to that tribe. The people like you and I, we're being kind. We don't want them in our tribe. They got to belong. That's that original fear of belonging. And so they're strutting around. And yeah, all of a sudden, I'm with you. I remember when I was growing up, it was be kind, share, love each other. And now it's no, let's beat the shit out. Excuse my language. Let's beat the heck out of these guys. And I think it's their group. They want to be part of the group. They have to have a group that agrees with them, and we don't, and so they got to find those other bullies. So I think that's what's going on, really.
Paul, did you have something you wanted to share? I see you unmuted.
I guess I'm unmuted. Well, this topic gets back to something that I found out when I was in midlife after they decided to quit drinking. I wanted a new way of looking at things. And my sponsor, I guess you'd call him, one day says, "Have you ever something I think you enjoy reading?" And I looked at it, and the title of it was Love is Letting Go of Fear by Jim Polsky.
Mhm.
And my God, I got into that book and I said, this is what I've been looking for all my life. This is how can I find what I really didn't even know what I was looking for. That was part of it. This idea that he defined it, the choices were love or fear. And I got thinking about it after we started practicing all the things in the book. I think it was the reason Jesus came to this earth. The real Jesus I'm talking about, not necessarily the one who went to heaven, but the real Jesus, the guy that actually went around helping people out of their problems. And in the end, he created two new commandments. He says, love their God with all their heart and mind, and love their neighbor as yourself. And you can live on that. That's meat and potatoes. I I think that's where the answer is. I think we all have our opinions of what's right and wrong and all that, but in the end, you'll feel it. You'll feel it, what's right and wrong. I don't think we need to be taught that. We sometimes need to wake up like I was needed to be woken up. But when we wake up and look at what we're here for and try to figure that out, I think we'll find it. I don't know if I don't want to get any more deep in it because it's my whole life, really.
Thanks, Paul.
There's one thing that is common actually to everything is the energy or the consciousness level. And Hawkins has a scale of consciousness level that I can quick show you that, for Cheryl's point about naming everything, which makes us feel comfortable, that's just that. But at the end of the day, it is a scale of vibrations that we have. So I'm quick going to share that. So you have hell down here, at least giving a name is grief, apathy, fear, guilt, shame, and then you go to different level of vibration that brings you to different to recognizing your how do you say, your reality in different ways. And as you move along, you can see where you feel. Can you understand it? Are you there? For instance, if we talk about oneness, can you be in a state of oneness or in a love on a continuous base? I mean, we all feel it going in and out at times, but at the end, it's a presence. It's where we are that is really driving it. So this is energetic from this standpoint.
Huh.
Very nice.
What happened to Barbara?
Cindy and then Arlene and
Well, Paul mentioned the famous scripture, love your neighbor as yourself. And this whole talk, really great, DyAnne, really timely for me. And I've talked about this a little bit. I have an actual neighbor that at times is so fun to be around, and at other times she's crazy and I can't understand her. And I thought, just what you said about she is deeply motivated by fear. That's what drives her to, I use the word triggered, like things I do trigger her. And we just had a huge one. And I'm just like, I don't think I'm supposed to be friends with her. The whole drive for me of having been a strong fundamental Christian, and then just all what we're talking about comes into view for me. Like, how do I be that loving neighbor? Because I'm afraid of, I have a drive in me that's like, be a nice person. And if somebody doesn't like me, I'm doing something wrong and I got to win them over. And I don't know exactly where that comes from, except maybe a little bit what you were saying about my fear of I'm not being a loving person. I can win her over. God wants me to. She's Israel and I'm Gaza. I don't know, but I can make it work. And I'm just driven to. And so we just had another major blowout. And I think, why is she nuts? She's just nuts. And what you had to say today totally simplified it for me. Like, she is driven and triggered when it's like it's actual boundaries, because we have a neighbor boundary, but it's also she has to have this control that if she doesn't have it, she goes berserk. And what to me, it's like I'm thinking about it, and she's not thinking. I'm going, what's wrong with her? And then what's wrong with me that I can't somehow overcome that and make it work for now? It's not so much for God, but it's for the love in the universe I can add to that by loving her. So, but it really helped me realize more that she's triggered by these simple little boundary things, where the fence is, stuff like that. And then I'm triggered because I can't love her. I, so all this stuff, all this comes into like, love your neighbor as yourself. And then like Eric's just whole thing there. And I took a picture of it because I'm going to study it.
Me too.
The levels of consciousness, and where am I in that? And how can I rise above it all? And
Yeah.
anyway, this was really great today. Really,
And do that thing, that Harry Morgan Moses thing that drove you crazy. What's this really about? What's this really about? And I'll bet you it's a fear of abandonment somewhere within that being nice, because I have that same thing. So do that very obnoxious Harry Morgan Moses thing, because it really, as obnoxious as it is, it really works.
Well, I know I'm afraid of not being liked or being perceived as a loving, kind person. And of course, she triggers that in me because I'm
Mm-hmm.
such a great neighbor. We took her
Mm-hmm.
to the hospital and I
And
fed her
she should
cat.
see that.
Yes. And why does she gets in my face and she tells me just in this rage, you never do anything nice for anybody. You're just a bitch and she talks to me like, what?
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
Did you hold up a
Projection,
mirror?
projection.
But
Just hold up
then
a
of
mirror
course,
the next time she
there's the
goes
big
off on you.
the challenge of, oh, Cindy, you think you're a better person. Yeah, you're not. That whole, just so much comes into those
Uh-huh.
interactions. But I know that I have to look at like, wow, why am I so triggered? But then too, like I could ask all you guys, well, I have a lot of advice from people that know this goes on, and they say, you just got to stay away from her. You just don't talk to her, put up an actual 8-foot fence or whatever is legal. And I think, yeah, maybe that's the message to me. I don't have to be nice to her.
Right.
I don't have to be like,
That could be it, but if you're having a strong emotion, there might be something else in there.
oh, well, I know I'm supposed to look at, I really get triggered if I think I am misunderstood.
Yeah.
all my intentions are wonderful and I'm doing all these nice things and you just don't understand me.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Cindy.
Kay.
I
So,
think Arlene's next, isn't she?
Well,
Yeah.
if you want on mute, please.
Arlene, you're muted.
Yeah, you're still muted, Arlene.
Can't hear you, honey.
and then Kay's had her hand up for a while.
It's all right.
Okay.
Why don't Kay go ahead and share while
There you
Arlene.
Wait,
are.
no,
Arlene.
Arlene's on.
Got it.
And then Kay can go next. Yeah.
I have been thinking while I'm listening, this is a wonderful, fun conversation. Thank you all so much. And what comes to my mind is some of us have more of what we sometimes call intuition, or it's an energetic, as Eric talks about the energy feeling. And what I get is something that I've been known to call the uh-oh feeling, when I'm around somebody that feels dangerous to me in one way or another, the hair actually stands up on the back of my neck. I get little chills on my arms. I get this feeling that is different from emotion. It is actually a physical feeling. And I call it, and others call it, the uh-oh feeling. And some of us who have experienced pain and trauma in our lives, I think, have that. And some of us who are more unhealed in the trauma that we've experienced are more likely to experience that uh-oh feeling, and we got to give it a name. Oh shit, that's evil, that's bad, that's dangerous, I don't want it, don't let it near me, I got to get out of here, get it out of here, get some kind of separation physically or emotionally or psychologically to feel safe. And I don't think anything's wrong with that. I don't know if that's evil. I don't know if we give it the name. Sometimes we can call it evil. I have felt that emotion around people. It's like, oh shit, I don't want to talk to that guy. He's dangerous. And you just kind of know it in your bones, in your blood. You know that that's not safe. And we could call it evil, or we could call it whatever we want to.
An energy sink.
Yeah, energy thing. It is an energy.
No, not thing. A sink. Some things that draws you in.
S-I-N-K.
Yeah.
S-I-N-K.
S-I-N-K, yeah. And you can feel that. I mean, you can feel the other direction too. I mean, you go into a group of people who are very enlightened, you can feel good about it, right? I mean, we have experienced that in workshops over and over again when we go to these metaphysical workshops. and it feels good. You can walk next to a person on the sidewalk and you can feel,
And
wow.
feel that, yes. I feel
it's
that
vibrational.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes, Arlene, when I feel that, I get that same feeling because I grew up with, a lot of a very dysfunctional home. I call it, that person's scary. I don't call them evil. I just say they're scary. I'm scared of them. And then that's the bottom line, is fear. So, but I get that feeling. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, and I think it's the fight or flight that happens to me. Oh, I got to get out of here, and that's a fear reaction. So that's why I don't think it's evil. I think it's scary. I think those people are scary, so I want to stay away from them.
And some of us intuitively know when this isn't safe.
Exactly.
Maybe to us, maybe because of our own vulnerability, maybe of that person's level of aggression or whatever it is, something energetically is either this or something, and it's not safe. And we sense that and know that, and got to figure out what we want. There are people in the world who hurt people for all kinds of reasons. And sometimes we spend a lot of time trying to figure out what are the reasons and what do I need to do to be safe. And when this person is in charge of me or in control of a classroom or a group or an organization or whatever, that fear is amplified, or we recognize it or whatever, and that's how we learn how to be safe or not.
Thanks, Eileen.
Okay, it's okay. Next.
I'm just going to jump in real quick on Arlene's I remember the saying, psychology or spirituality, but hurt people. And that's what made me think of that, when that's kind of a bottom line, that people that are hurt and not healed, hurt people.
Yeah.
That's sometimes true. I don't think all people hurt all people, but a lot of them do.
Yeah. Well, some hurt people, they don't hurt people. Like if I think of myself, my hurtness doesn't cause me to hurt people. It causes me to try to hurt myself, kind of like be too nice and gullible and open. And anyway,
vulnerable. Yes, you have a vulnerability.
Okay, are you ready?
Oh yeah.
I can tell you're kind of bursting out of your skin there.
Oh no, it's been a really interesting discussion, and I think Cindy brought it around with a real life example of, you know, the fear and the good and the evil. It's great to talk about it on a philosophical level and understand where it's coming from. But what are the practical applications in our everyday life when our government appears to be falling apart around us, where safety nets for vulnerable people are disappearing? And with the comment that Arlene made, it's, you know, who's going to be in control of me by the people who are in control of our government. I don't like what they're doing at all. But I don't feel like I have any power to cause any change for the next 2 years, other than maybe going out to protest or two. I don't feel empowered. So where do we go from looking at this from a philosophical, intellectual perspective to the everyday reality of dealing with the fear of the evil people who are trying to run our country? It's like,
well, I think you do it when you got the chance.
Well, yeah, well, 2 years.
You just said it. You're going to wait 2 years and vote for somebody else.
How much destruction is going to happen between now and then? And what
things are going to happen.
Think about this from not a philosophical area, but think about this from a spiritual way. Are there things supposed to be happening so that we can wake up and go, you know, maybe this is, you know, I don't know the answer, but I just have given it to God. God's got a plan. I don't know what it is, but in my lifetime, I've seen things work out to be way better than I could have expected, even when they look black. So maybe it's not, and I'm not saying you have to do it my way or think of it my way, but maybe sometimes I think the question is not in a philosophical everyday thing, but maybe in a spiritual sense. What's the answer? You know, that's what I try to do when I don't know what to do. It's all up to spirit then.
Because we watch the PBS NewsHour at night, and the last 4 months, I've screamed at the television more than I ever have.
Yeah.
It's like my reactions are so.
I think you're in I think we're all in agreement with you, hon.
have been concerned of late about what's going on in the world, like how do we decide how to stand and where to do and where to stand and how to talk. And one of my concerns is I don't understand what is going on with Israel and Palestine. Who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? And where am I in that issue? And it's a big issue. It's a global issue. And so my goal is to try to study it and figure it out. And I can't figure it out because all of the books that have written about it and all the history, these guys have been after each other and after this whole thing for so long that nobody knows who's right and who's wrong. And some people have ideas about it and what to do about it. Well, let's take all their money. Well, let's take all their cars. Let's take all their oil. Let's do this. Let's do that. And what side am I on in all of this? And the truth is, I don't have a clue, and how am I going to be safe? And where do I want to stand? And how am I going to be safe is a big one. My son, Jesse, who lives on Whidbey Island and owned his business and has his family, has recently learned that he has citizenship in Canada. And he's deciding whether or not he wants to move to Canada to get away from all of this stuff that we're feeling. And I can't advise him about that. Well, go see if you like it there, go there and see what you like. What kind of food do you like? How are the people like? Where would you work? Where would you live? How are you going to make money? You got to explore. And so I don't know how we decide the best way to take care of ourselves in the middle of all this crap. Carol, what?
Please unmute, Carol.
Honey.
Carol, you're muted, honey.
Arlene, like you, I don't know either, but I know that what works for me is when I think I don't have any choices, then I go into energy. Like Eric always says, everything is energy. And so with that energy, I envision what I'd like it to be and not concentrate on how awful it is. And that just works for me.
Good plan.
That's nice, Carol. Thank you.
And that too, not in a just sporadic, a little bit thinking this way is one day, but in a focused way. You gotta repeat what you want to see happening in your mind. And that's the powers that we have. I mean, in your mind, bringing it back into your heart so that you can emit the vibrations that changes everything. The vibration from your heart transform reality. Okay, your thoughts only a way to formulate something, but what transform it? It's not your thinking that transforms it. It's your
energy.
You're feeling it.
Yes.
Yeah. That the both together, like Jung says that.
Well, it's like my mom used to say, you work like hell to get things done, and then you let God do the rest of it.
But Eric, what you're doing, you're focusing on what's the right thing to do, and then
I don't know the right thing to do, so I just focused on love.
You're probably gonna figure out that something you'll be able to recognize the right or wrong when it occurs, and I think you'll do the right thing when that time comes. If you have the opportunity to act, you're going to act in the right way.
Well, our scale of what's right or wrong is really on this energy scales that I showed you before, right? I mean, if anything, if I would say good or bad, I would say fear is bad and love is good. And this is innate in us. This is not something that we're making up. And when you feel in fear, you will create fear. If you feel in love, you'll create love. That's where you place your focus, right?
And then there's that amygdala, like Rev DyAnne was talking about. When that thing goes into fear mode, your executive function turns off. You're not thinking clear.
Yeah. And that's what I think's going on in our politics right now. When people say, how could they think that way? I'm like, they're not thinking. You're asking the wrong question. I'm always saying, are you asking the right question? So, yeah.
And it's easier to manipulate people when they're in fear
Oh
because they'll
yeah.
follow just
Oh yeah.
anybody, you
We
know.
know that from all of our all our media and everything. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, riling people up, I think it does trigger that
Yep.
your
Yep.
brain, and then puts you in that non-executive state where reason is not
Non-executive.
what's
I like that.
happening, reason and thinking.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, Linda, when we're afraid and want to be safe, we make decisions that are different. Like, what do I got to do? I got to buy a gun and be ready to shoot somebody. Maybe I have to figure out how to break somebody's nose. Maybe I'm going to study martial arts. That's what I'll do. I'll study martial arts, and then I'll know how to get out of a chokehold, and I can boom, knock somebody out. And I'll study from those martial artists in the world that know how to do that. And I don't think it's who said it's not about thinking? It's a survival thing. And I think our worlds have been over the course of time about survival and energy and how to stand in this place and be safe. I was raised in a family where you couldn't trust people, and the people that you knew loved you and that you loved were capable of actually physically and emotionally hurting you to the point of damaging you, and there was no way to be safe. Do you know the first case of child abuse went to court in 1966? That was the year that I graduated from high school. Before that, anything that happened to children wasn't even against the law, because could decide how to do that, and the way you controlled children was to hurt them, and you spanked them, or you clobbered them, or you threatened them, or you made them afraid, or you did this or did that, and that was the law. That was the way we lived. And we've changed the law, thank goodness, but that changed in 1966. That wasn't that long ago. That was not very long ago at all. So we're in the middle of change and how to do it. And the truth is, we don't have a friggin' clue how to do it or what to do. And we're all talking about, how do we do this? How do we do that? And Nanda, I love you. What?
I wanted to thank you, Arlene. That's a cool thing. But I wanted to ask DyAnne, do you think God really has a plan? Really?
Well, yes and no. I think that the plan is always love, pure and simple, and to bring us to that place. So it's not really a plan. It's not like, okay, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, but kind of like what Eric was saying, us evolving as human beings, as souls, to that higher vibration of love. That's what I believe the plan is. And so I believe a lot of the things that seem like God's plan to me are ways that we can learn to be love. That's what I believe.
Well, I think that's a good place to sum it up. Thank you, DyAnne, and thank you,
You're welcome,
for all your input and participation.
Yeah.
Very relevant and personal and significant.
Yeah.
Thank you for this message and stimulus, DyAnne.
Thank you all for being here. I just love seeing you guys.
DyAnne.
Great. Okay, we do have another song, again by Karen Drucker, I Allow, I Surrender. Wow, quiet place there.
Yeah.
Hard to break it. Thank you. So let's have our closing circle, greeting each other with namaste, recognizing spirit and God within each.
Namaste.
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 Namaste. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste. So in closing, I just want to acknowledge that this community is supported by the gifts of its participants, be that sharing of their leadership or their skills or their financial support. And to share financially, you can do that at the website, my-alc.com, or by mailing a check to our P.O. box. And we get an email periodically with that information available in it. And I just give gratitude to all who do support the church in every one of those ways. So thank you, God, for all these gifts we have to give, and thank you for what we receive. Amen.